beautiful Ethic cuties and the 40% of you who have still not subscribed to the Ethicsverse. What the heck's wrong with you? It's free. I say it every week. Welcome to the coolest place to be every Thursday at noon Eastern. If you think fixing our workplace can fix our world. As we get started and run through our announcements, drop your LinkedIn URL in the chat, drop in where you're coming from, and I connect with one person today. Of course, follow the guest and the speakers, but connect with one other person today. Take advantage of this really special thing that we have in our community and build that network out. It's not big enough. We got a couple of great announcements coming up. We're going to be coming to 2 conferences in the next couple of days. Next week, we're going to be in HCCA in Vegas, and we're also going to be at Compliance Week National for the 20th anniversary. So if you're coming to either one of those, definitely swing by our booth, pick up a book, get a little break from the constant elevator bitches from everybody else, and check out some of the sessions. There's so many great sessions. And, you know, I talk about this all the time. I can't stress it enough. We all have this natural goal-seek mechanism. We have this, 4-pound nuclear reactor between our ears. If your head's big, maybe it's bigger than that. But we have this natural goal-seek mechanism, and you just have to feed it. You got to feed it new information so that it can, in your subconscious, make these new connections. And as you expose yourself to more things like the Ethicsverse, like going to conferences, like reading some of these great books that are in the Ethico library. So hit this QR code and check those out. Like listening to podcasts like my new favorite, Unless, with Dr. Hemalomax. You start to see new opportunities to apply your gifts to really broaden your impact. So I cannot stress that enough. Don't stay flat. If you're not, we're like sharks in this ethics and compliance game. If you stop swimming, you die. So you got to keep feeding yourself, and you got to keep growing. We've got great podcasts coming out all the time. Every few days, we're dropping a new episode. So if you have not watched or listened to the Ethics Experts, and if you have not subscribed to the Ethico YouTube channel, get out of here. You got to go to the YouTube channel and check it out. Constant great clips coming out from all this content that our team generates. And the last few episodes have really been great. So Ethics Experts, these are not my words. Best podcast I've ever heard, my mom said. Not my words, top 2% global podcast. So if you're not listening to this when you're walking your dog or driving to work, you don't want to listen to those same songs over and over again. Listen to something new. Listen to some of these thought leaders share their frameworks, and I guarantee you're going to get something that's going to help you move the needle. Speaking of move the needle, I want to share this really cool bot that our team just built. This is a great way. Well, you'll just listen. Here you go.
Wait, can I access investigation materials above my security clearance? What are the gift and entertainment thresholds for prospects? Who do I contact in internal audit to review a fraud allegation? Is HR notification mandatory for an enforced director-level administrative leave? What's the monetary threshold for Code 405? Can corrective action plans be completed after the root cause analysis? Does new evidence warrant a case reopening or require a What are the PHI export restrictions for compliance reports? What's happening? Oh, perfect.
So imagine that. Imagine your investigator. Imagine you load up all of your policies, all of your procedures into the tool, and your investigators have right at their fingertips a whole pool of AI-driven information to make sure that the decisions they're making through their investigations are really adhering to your process. We spend so much time thinking about our investigation process. We spend so much time training our folks. No one can remember all the little details in all of our policies and procedures. So we built this AI-driven bot that allows you to, like I said, load that information up, increase your process adherence, increase the efficiency. The name of the game is efficiency to get to that effectiveness. It's hard to feel like your program is effective if you don't know that all your processes are dialed in. So if you're interested in that, or you're interested in just checking out what else is out there, if you're with some of these legacy tools that perhaps are, lost a little bit of their luster, go to the Ethico website and hit the demo. There will be a link in the chat as well. And just see what's out there. Show up for a no pitch zone demo. And again, like I say all the time, it's our job to put the ball in the net, and it's our job. It's incumbent on us to make sure that we have the right resources and tools. And guess what? We removed 2 of the biggest impediments for making a switch. One is price. We're going to be able to save you some. We're of course going to save you some time. We're of course going to let you get a much more engagement. We're going to also give you some cost savings. So there's a 15% reduction if you move on over to Ethico, and there's up to a year free. Nobody likes changing houses. It can feel very intimidating to try to change from one case management system to another. So we remove that impediment as well. So check out this Promised Land promotion because we love you. Also, because we love you, we put out this phenomenal benchmark report. So we have 2 great benchmark reports that came out. We have the general one that also includes all the information from NAVEX, so you can have all those data points in one spot. And if you're in healthcare, I'd encourage you to check out the well-written, extremely well-written, I'd say, healthcare benchmark report. This benchmark report is not just talking about the data. Of course, that's in there. There's a bunch of great infographics, but there's also a ton of tips on strategies and tactics that you can start to employ in your process to, again, push that ball forward, put one foot in front of the other on our journey of continuous improvement. So download that. And if you're interested in just checking out, you don't want to read 40 pages, put a 1 in the chat and we'll be sure to send you the cheat sheet. It's an infographic that has all the biggest takeaways. And listen, if you're not benchmarking, if you're not looking for opportunities to improve, like I said, we're sharks. If we're not moving forward, we're moving backwards. It's one or the other. So check that out. Also, we are, of course, giving away 5 of Mary Shirley's. I love this book. I can't say enough good things about this book. This book is so thoughtful, and it's 65 tips on how you can improve your program. There's so many creative ideas. So much of our job is influence, and so much of influence is being able to pierce this, what I call the veil of attention. Everybody's attention span is so low. That veil is getting thicker and thicker. So we have to do new things. We have to shake things up. We have to interrupt the pattern if we want to pierce that veil and get through to the stakeholders and to the individuals that we're trying to influence. So this book is chock full of great ideas. If you have not bought it yet, then guess what? Jump into the chat, and you know what? Let's 3x. If you make a post on LinkedIn and you tag us in it with your biggest takeaways from today, because there's going to be a ton of takeaways, I guarantee it. If you tag us in it, you're going to 3x your chances to win. I don't like making money around here. I just like giving away books. And I also am going to ask once again for us to, as a community, come together and help us get Diana Trevely home. Diana Trevely has impacted so many people in this community of ethics and of compliance, and she had a terrible accident. She's stuck in a coma down in Argentina. If you've ever looked up how much medevac is, it's so expensive. So there's been such a great outpouring from the community, but I feel like we need to push it forward a little bit more and get her home and get her the care that she needs. So I don't ask anything of this community ever, but this is something I'm asking for us to kind of dig in our pockets, dig into the cushions of your couch, find a couple of bucks, and let's help get her home. Okay, with that, let's get one massive emoji explosion. I got a really good feeling about today because we got 1,800 emojis, and I'm not even through the introduction yet. I want to break a new record on Tuesday. We're doing these sessions on Tuesday as well. Tuesday, we had a brand new record. So I'm like in record-breaking mode right now. I'd love to get another massive emoji explosion to as I introduce and as we welcome our guests. So we have Evie and Seva, and we're going to be talking today about how we can really build a better foundation of culture inside the organization, and how we can really supercharge. And I'm always talking about how do we stack the deck in our favor? How do we stack the deck in our favor, and how do we activate the human sensors in our organization? Not just so we can crowdsource more risk intelligence and provide the right insights back, not waste our time, but really kind of build this true culture of integrity that leads to so many of the positive externalities that everybody cares about. The people at the board level, what do they care about? They care about enterprise value increasing. They care about cash flow increasing. All of that stuff is a function of the application of people's unique gifts and the extent to which they're willing to put, effort forward. We're talking about employee engagement. All of that is really going to be predicated on the trust that can come from a culture of integrity. And today we're going to be giving you some phenomenal tactics and techniques. How you guys doing today?
We are excellent. Thank you so much, Nick, for having us on. I am a bit starstruck because usually I am logged in as an audience and putting in my comments. So I am super happy to be here today. Anyone can do it. All the things you said about connecting are very important. So I definitely urge everyone who is part of the conversation today, connect with so many people you can, because I am here today with Sevi because we connected on LinkedIn and started having a conversation and just love having the conversation in a different perspective. She is in a different country. Actually, it's 8 p.m. Where she is in Baku, Azerbaijan. So definitely very happy to be here. Thank you for opening the door to us. Ethicsverse has been instrumental in my own personal growth journey. I've taken so many Ethicsverse over the years, where at the end of last month, I had completed the CCPE international certification, and I passed on the first try. So I'm super excited.
First try. We got a first try winner right here. Phenomenal.
And I thank you for that. Also, I wanted to say I will add to your giveaways. I will select 3 people after we're done. Hopefully we have the most emojis today, but I created these t-shirts that say, let's talk about ethics, because I think we don't talk about ethics enough. We need to set the tone from the beginning. So this is why today's title is Building Foundation of Integrity with Early Action. That's the key word, is the early action. And then now, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I love that shirt so much. My son said to me, he said, don't you have another shirt? Because I wear it all the time. It's such a great shirt. Please, Lo, let's get 3,700. This is going to be an episode for the record books. All right, let's dive in here. We're talking about building this kind of foundation. You can take it.
Okay, Sevi.
Yeah, thank you, Evie, for a great idea to do a podcast on an Ethicsverse platform. And I'm really intrigued to prepare for this podcast. I'm joining from Baku, Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan is a transcontinental country, and at the border of Asia and Europe, in a South Caucasus, and a border by Russia, Turkey, and Georgia. So it's really amazing. Thanks, Nick, for your hospitality. And I'm really excited to be here and to share my experience on integrity and how we foster really these integrity principles in my country's company, Othercell, as a leading telco company. So thank you very much. I think it will be really fun. And we'll have a lot of questions. Yeah.
So we are ready. So today, while I was thinking about the presentation, I don't know if that happens to any of you before you go to bed. You have all these different thoughts. So I had to actually, at midnight, get my phone and dictate comments into my notepad on my phone to start this presentation. So think of, I always like to set the stage, right? So think of your hiring process. Think of the tale of 2 employees, one who was never told at the beginning about what the values are, what the code of conduct is, what is the just company culture. There was never any kind of notes. What do they do? How do they behave? How do they act if they don't know what the expectation is? And maybe you tell them, but you tell them somewhere down the road. And then you have another employee where you try to tell them in many different ways from the beginning of employment. And this is why we're talking about this here. I feel that from what I've seen, it doesn't happen often enough. There's some companies do it, but it's not frequent. So I want to open everyone's eyes and kind of think of your own processes. And we will have a little Menti tool meter here to see how we're doing. But I really want us to think about it. And then we, like Nick said, give you a whole bunch of takeaways to go home and do your homework, reach out and do all these great kind of things. So with that, we are going to just dive in it. So here we have few statistics on why is it that why I think and Sevi thinks and Nick thinks it's so important to talk about this, setting the right tone and setting the culture. Many companies, many young people, I believe now, want to work in companies where the culture is important, it's good, it's valuable, it's based on ethics, and that's where everything is going in that direction. Okay, Sevi?
Yeah, some of these stats really jump out to me. On the last slide, it talked about sales growth increase due to a better culture. We talked about employee engagement on that last slide, I believe, as well. And, I think it's, sorry, if you can go back to this one. I'm sorry, I lost my place here. Yeah. Company culture is more important today than it's ever been. And I think it's on us to make sure that leadership understands the connection between employee engagement, which is a function of the culture, and these bottom line metrics that they're most concerned about. A lot of people pay lip service to it leadership wise, and it's on us to really kind of help them reframe our role and our third order impact that we have on the organization.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. And actually, recently, I think was it last week or the week before, the world's most ethical companies had their nomination and selected a whole bunch of companies, 136 companies they usually select, because they believe ethics is good for business. I think it's actually one of their taglines, ethics is good for business. So I feel that now it's the time to bring what we're talking about, because everything is related when it comes to ethics and integrity and compliance. Happy employees are more productive employees, right? And that leads to better business, more business, happy customers. So that's certainly what I believe. And bringing the conversation back to today, I feel that there are many opportunities being missed on setting the right tone. So
it's a great point.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to just to add on this with my experience. I mean, the main things here and important things, effectiveness of the compliance program, just start with the orientation program, where usually people, the new joiners, have to attend to the several mandatory trainings on a code of conduct, and ethics, business ethics, and ABC or HEC, data privacy, which we had in my company in Azerbaijan. And during the first week, once they are just starting to work as a new employee, they usually have 15 days in order to complete all of this stuff. They have also access to the e-learning platform in account base where they can find AI generated, very supported with the case studies, supported with the reflections, examples where they can just easily get everything, in training, and to get the really warm welcoming by the HR, by the compliance officer speech, but also they have a chance just to read, to understand all of these materials. It's also possible in a corner in an intracell, which we have as an internal tool, which means that everything starts with the door of the integrity, which we're trying to do in our company. So this is just practice I would like to share with you as well, which we have in several companies in Azerbaijan, also in other sites. Yeah.
I get so excited about this space, particularly in this moment in time, because, as this first bullet says, millennials prioritize people and culture fit above everything else. Our grandparents, everybody has a hierarchy, a prioritization list of what they're looking for in a job and where they want to, work and put their gifts to work. And there's been no other time in recorded history that I know of where that prioritization list of the workforce, of the people who are adding the value to our companies is as aligned as it is with what we prioritize. We want cultures of integrity, not just for the sake of it, but because of the positive impact that it can have. So we have this window where the next 10 years can really look a lot different, but we have to do things a little bit differently. And I love that you're bringing up this thing about team leads. Team leads have this massive impact. They say that people don't quit companies, they quit managers. And so when we can actualize and activate those leaders and get them singing from our song sheet, we can really start to multiply our impact. Can you talk to us a little bit about how we can better activate those managers to make sure that they are kind of presenting a united front along with the initiatives that we're pushing and the ethos we're trying to generate in the company?
So you have a wonderful tool for activating the managers or resources for information. I believe there is a gap when code of conduct says, we have managers and we want them to be our ethics superstars and ethics leaders. And they have a beautiful paragraph in the code of conduct talking about it. And in many times I have found out that there's almost nothing in between. So there is the code, and then there are the managers, but they're never told what, when, how. So I, have been working on a program that includes the managers, which is outside of this conversation, but it really tells the managers who you are, who is ethics leader, what does it mean, how to get there, what is the expectation is. And initially, really the expectation when you bottle it down is having a short, sweet conversation with your employees on anything ethics and compliance. That can be anything in the news, any materials that you provide, any policy, anything new. Just be able to have those conversations, because the more you have those conversations, you're building the muscle. It's part of your DNA. Employees are more comfortable with you because they're able to have those conversations. So if you say something back that you don't see it's correct, they will be able to spot it and maybe able to act on it or bring it up to the compliance people to make sure that it's handled appropriately way before issues happen. Right. And that would be the ideal goal of like the 360 of the organization. But we have to start here with this company setting the tone at the beginning of employment, because I also feel when it comes to young people, and I'm getting a little off track here and I wasn't even prepared to speak to this, but 2 weeks ago, I was able to judge a competition for the IBEC that was in California. I participated as a judge online and I was blown away by our young people. So these were all business ethics or business major people coming from all over major colleges. There was even one from Mexico that I got to sit on talking about ethics and compliance. So they had to come up with an ethical issue and then they had to present on it, figure the laws, like do a research, and then present to the board of directors their findings and how would they handle those kind of situations. It was brilliant, fascinating, super proud of these young people. The one thing that I thought was kind of missing is those were all business ethics people. So if you're not a business or business major, then you don't get the same access to information talking about ethics and compliance. But so how many employees do you get in your companies that are not business majors, right? A lot. There's all these other majors. So I feel like we, as compliance community, have to start reaching out to colleges and schools and say like, hey, wait a minute, we need to be teaching business ethics course or maybe business life course to everybody else. So that will be my pet passion, to try to find a way to get that done, because I feel like these kids were brilliant, or these young people were brilliant in what they did, but we need to also spread it all across. So then when we talk about what we talk about today, it will be expected. It will be the baseline. It won't be the exception. And that's really the conversation, I think, where it's today.
I just can't stop talking about, I will shut up at some point after this, but I can't stop talking about the opportunity that we have, because this prioritization has changed. You got access to all these younger folks in college right now. They were obviously highly engaged in this competition, and like, the stuff we're talking about, we're not trying to teach a fish how to fly. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're all wired for this stuff. We all want this stuff. If you think back to your first job, when you're walking into that office or walking into that location, you had all these hopes. And many times we get kind of chewed up and spit out by an organization. And we start to develop this sort of callousness, or this like carapace, as I call it. And when we can, when we can cause people to drop that guard, and we can cause them to drop that armor that they've maybe accumulated over the years, there's so much magic that can come forward. So, it's really more about digging something out of people and creating the circumstances for these flowers to bloom than it is for us to reinvent something or like teach somebody something new. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. I feel like the more, go ahead, Sebi.
Yeah. In this conversation, I have some finger on it. I have from 2010 university experience as a lecturing on a business ethics in a different universities in Azerbaijan. So it's really good to have these people because these students will be in a future new joiners or employees of any company, and it will be really good to have this value in the market, where also to instructs them and give a knowledge and expertise how they're gonna to choose and differentiate between the bad and the good companies, and ethical, not ethical, and all of these things around. It will really good starting for them, knowing this knowledge in a university, then going to the company and to starting to apply all of these ethical principles. Yeah, it's really good to have in a university levels as well as a discipline of business ethics.
Great. So today we prepared a Mentimeter for this purpose. So I'm going to try to share my screen because I am really interested in sharing. Let's see, entire screen. I'm sorry. I am really excited to see what the audience thinks of all the different ways when you talk about ethics, compliance, and integrity during your onboarding and hiring practices. I've looked at a lot of job postings that are visible on LinkedIn and through Indeed on all these different things. So I have some assumptions. I've also done a survey amongst my own friends. And one interesting observation that I had made is if employees were hired 20, 15, or 10 years ago, this conversation almost never happened. So it's interesting that now as we go to more the current process, we're setting the bar higher where we talk about values during onboarding process. So here is great. We have 22 yeses and maybe no's. So I'll leave it on for a little bit before we move into the next slide.
Yeah. So if you have not filled this out yet, go to menti.com and use this code that Joe had just put in the chat. It's like the third one up. And please participate here. Please keep going, Evie.
Yes. Okay. So we can then switch to the next. So this one was talking about companies' values specifically during the hiring practices. Okay. So the next question. So most do it here, which is great. So on the next slide, we are going to ask about ethics and compliance program during the hiring process. Do you know, are you aware, if your company is including ethics and compliance program information during the hiring process? So we have equal yes and no. There you go. This is fun to just watch the different dynamics over here. So it's split. Okay. Now it's yes. Great. I love the interaction. Thank you so much, everyone, for participating. This is what makes it fun, not just listen to us, but being part of the engagement is really great. So thank you. So my next question is, if yes, when and where the values information was included or discussed? If you can put in just quick little, like, what was it during the posting, the onboarding, email, you can give any information. I'm just curious to see what are the different ways that your company has communicated on ethics and compliance. Look at that. Interviews, conflict of interest inquiry. Okay, wonderful. Thank you. So this was talking about the values. So now the next question has to do with the compliance program. When do you discuss that generally? And then if you say orientation, if you can tell me, when does your orientation generally take place? Is it first week, first month? How often orientation is scheduled? Okay, so most talk about that in the orientation. Good. Okay. Training expected. And then a yearly. Okay, beautiful. Thank you so much for participating. I love it. All right, we'll go to our next question because we have a lot to cover today. So if you're on the line today, are you directly involved in the hiring process? Okay, so I thought that would be interesting. So that is related to the next question. Okay, thank you so much. And the next one is, what is your role in your company title? So I'm really looking like, are you HR or are you compliance? Are you something else? If you can let us know. Ethics advisor, beautiful. Compliance. Talent growth, HR specialist. Beautiful. Thank you so much. I love it. Look at all those beautiful answers. So not everyone is directly, and I'll stop sharing now, not everyone is directly related to the hiring practices, which is what I expected. So this is part of the conversation today, is how do we give you ideas on all the different areas where we could be talking about values and the compliance program, and how to maybe extend an olive branch to the people who are doing recruiting, HR people, and all that good stuff. I think that's the most important thing. Sevi?
Yeah, in most cases, Evie, I wanted to add up just, I like the way of your breakdown, job posting, starting with job posting and ending onboarding. Usually in my practice, what I observed, usually in a orientation, and before the orientation, in a final stage where just the company just decided from a shortlisted, which will be the final candidate will be the new joiner for the company. During that stage also, company presents some kind of values, like a warm welcoming. And it's really good to have, in my observation, even in my country's announcement, I don't see any kind of ethics and compliance programs like introduction, It seems that everybody just hunting for a talent, for a professional or solid background, but there is no touch point about that. Do they really need an ethical person? Do they really need, in one of my last event on a leadership I attended, I like the way of expression of one of HR, fearless person we are looking. It seems that they just interchange the words instead of just looking for a more trusted, more ethical person. Instead of fearless person. Because as I see, even in a specialist position in a nowadays business, trying to get more professional in a decision making, even that person in a junior or specialist, So it's really critical to have in a job announcement, because everything started with a job announcement to show your compliance program insights. Yeah.
So my friend Ellen Hunt, she came up with this term called ethical refugees. And this speaks to the fact that today's workforce cares about their ethical environment more than any other generation in recorded history. And people, and it's easier to change jobs today than it ever has been, right? Labor mobility is higher than it's ever been. And so that's why after COVID, during the Great Resignation, we saw so many people changing jobs and saying, you know what, it's not worth it. This company's deed doesn't follow its word. And so we have this massive opportunity when somebody comes into the organization. We have to assume, look, it's more conservative and it's a safer bet if you're in terms of stacking the deck in your favor, to assume that you're talking to a group of ethical refugees, people that have at least worked in some place that hasn't, living up to the expectations that they had. You have this little window to really make a massive influence. You know that saying about first impressions. I don't know what the saying is, but first impressions are important. That first little window when you meet somebody, that can color a lot of what you think about them. And your first impression of an organization can really color the extent to which you can, feel comfortable letting your gifts, out inside that organization. And so this is a game of influence, and we have to just think about what these touch points are. That hiring, that hiring process, bringing those values to bear, making sure that those are part of the conversation, just as part of the standard process, is such a massive opportunity. So if we can hit that beat then, and then when they start the job, we can really, which we'll be talking about here in a minute, we can really start to, make them feel like, oh, wow, this company is different than the place that I just came from. This company feels different. The gap between what they claim, the words on the wall, the values on the wall, and the actual culture that we're living out every day, there's a forward pressure to try to close that gap. That's the kind of environment we're trying to create. So I can't stress the opportunity enough on these job postings and really starting to integrate values. Look, if they matter, you're going to talk about it all the time. So integrating that is so strong.
I love it. I love your comment. I actually wanted to read Karen Holly's comment. Say, I want to add compliance language to all JDs and employment agreements as a part of hiring. onboarding. I love it. And it's a beautiful segue to what, I wanted to kind of point out is, so there's so many opportunities to set the tone. Your posting is number one. It should always include some kind of a value statement or language to showcase your values. Why not? Like you said, we're setting the tone. We want to do that. But then there is an email. If actually before the email, there is an application. So the application should include something, maybe a link to a video that you created, like this is why you want to be here. Join us. We're a company of integrity, ethics, and compliance, and whatever your values are should be showcased. Then you have an automated email response, say, hey, we got your application. That can include a document, one-page link embedded. I mean, there's so many with technology, so many beautiful opportunities to create great visuals and for people to really understand and feel the importance of your compliance programs and your company values. And talking about it the same way, if you're requesting an interview, include a link with the documentation. I mean, there was one company that I saw that they had included a page, or it was a web-based page, that they had a lot of different information about their values training, but it doesn't happen often. There was one that I can tell you. Then during the interview, maybe it's time to talk about the values of the person and how they align with your company. Like sometimes we're so focused on the actual job that we forget to talk about the company values. So there should be some recommendation from the team, compliance team, to the HR recruiting team and the hiring managers who are not always trained on how to hire people. Maybe that's another note to think about what that looks like. Job offer should be another one. And onboarding training, we have to think about, when does it happen? So I will give you my personal story. And this is why I thought like this whole onboarding is important. And I created a sample onboarding deck set that's included in this presentation. So when you log into it, there is a live link that you could use. So I started working for a company and there was no onboarding until 6 months in my job. And it was lovely. We met in person. We had lunch. We toured the property. We talked about benefits. We talked about IT security. We talked about building security. There was zero comments about anything about the values, compliance program, hotline, anything. Actually, that company had no hotline posted anywhere. And for me, I was like, oh, because at this point I was drinking the compliance Kool-Aid and I expected it and it wasn't there. So that was something from experience. So this is why I think what we're talking about today is important, and it's opened everyone's eyes. And if you haven't, reach out to your recruiters, reach out to your HR people and have those conversations.
I'd like to ask what message did that send to you, the lack of these things? And what did you observe in terms of like the culture and your coworkers, in terms of like the message that was kind of implicitly sent to them?
Mm-hmm. So it was a battle for me personally, a struggle, because I knew what I wanted to see when it came to good compliance program. My previous experience was I was the one implementing it, and I am very much, if it hasn't come across, a people person, and I want people to have the best experiences. So it wasn't there. So I tried to be the champion of the change, and I changed a lot of different things when it came to communication about the compliance program. I created monthly compliance communication. I created compliance webpage. I made sure that people knew where the hotline was, because before I got there, it didn't happen. But unfortunately, that company and that leadership, and maybe because it was international company and it was part of the international culture, they were just focused on the paper kind of compliance program, checking it in the box. And it was hard for me. That was definitely a struggle.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Were you going to say something, Sevi?
Yeah, actually, what Evie mentioned about the tick box, in my company experience, also I have such kind of like experience. Also, when we started to have a survey among local companies, the same approach is met. So the most effective way, just maybe to do some kind of survey in order to understand and in order maybe to shape this landscape together and to avoid any tick box approach. be honest, tick box should be always, but it shouldn't be like 70% out of the 100. It should be some kind of 40. But the behind of these percentages, there should be some kind of like effective and inaction like approach. Yeah.
Listen to this comment from Amanda McAdams. Amanda, thanks so much for this. This is phenomenal. What differentiates us from our competition? We may offer the exact same product, but it's how we do it that makes the difference. I think that's exactly right. There's so much potential in that, and there's so much impact that we as ethics folks can have on the how we deliver the service and how it feels to work inside the organization. But again, it's on us. We can't just sit back. You know, Evie, I love that story because you saw, you know, Wendy's on here. Wendy Badger, one of my all-time faves. She was on the Ethics Experts. Have I talked about the Ethics Experts before? Just kidding. But she said something in our episode that I've never forgot. She said, "I want to leave it better." And that's what our job is. Our job is to leave it better. Our job is to make it better for the people around us, for the generations that are coming up behind us. And that takes not only being able to observe opportunities for improvement, but it takes the high agency commitment to improvement to actually make those changes. And, you know, Evie, I love that you stepped into the company and you started to see what you could do to help and see what you could do to sort of unleash this sort of latent, coiled spring that is the ethical culture that we're trying to unearth.
Yeah. And I mean, I love that comment. And it's something that I try to teach my kids every day is whatever you do, wherever you go, leave things better, whether it's your room, you know, picking up something and throwing it out because teenagers have plenty of things in their room, whether it's a program, if you can enhance it. And when it comes to compliance program, not everything has to cost a lot of money where you have to ask for budgets, but there's so many ways to, and so many opportunities to create engagements for employees. And I have a host list, and I actually give myself a little plug. I have the Ethics Club on LinkedIn where I put in different ideas. And not too long ago, I posted an idea about free engagement tool that you can use for your employees. So you just have to be creative. You have to see what works, what doesn't work, and continue going with that message. I think that's very important. I wanted to...
Please go ahead. Okay, so all right, I'll go. So Melanie, hey Melanie, how's it going? She said, how do you communicate, or how do you recommend to best communicate the results of the survey? It seems like this is where we need to do better and take the action. So I'd love to hear what your thoughts are, but also drop some ideas in the chat. You know, great, we implement this idea, this survey. The survey is not the end of something. Obviously, it's the start of something. And for us to get the benefits of it, we have to communicate it out to the workforce because we're influencing hearts and minds. So what would you tell Melanie? And again, guys, drop some ideas in your own responses in the chat. What would you say? What's the best way to communicate it?
So I think it depends on who we are surveying and like what are the questions we're asking. If we're asking to improve process, maybe the first part of the communication should be with the compliance team. So like, for example, I was working with a group of compliance people that they, reported to me, compliance officers, on their activities for the subsidiary of the company. So we would survey the employees and together we would get together and review the surveys to make sure we understand what improvements were made. But then we also had town halls, or we created a compliance communication that they talked about the survey results. But I find out town halls were probably a nice way to talk about the surveys because you had direct feedback. Or if like this opportunity to have, now with technology, we can do Zooms and we can do all these web services where you can get direct feedback. I think that's really good and important. People really want to be heard, and they want to know if they're answering the survey that you're actually doing something about it, not just you never know what happens. So I think feedback is definitely very important.
Yeah, I agree with Evie about the survey result negotiation. The last time in my practice, it took place in an ethics and compliance week where we just engaged many employees, senior mid-level managers, even in an ENC moments for the management review meetings. I always suggest it's really good place just to talk about and to let your people understand why we are doing such kind of survey, only not just for formal side, not just for a tick boxing, just to understand what's the value of this survey, because it will really, in my practice, it will really like make impact also in some kind of KPIs also in my previous experience. So it's really constant communication is must here. Yeah.
Yeah. So I will pivot over on our next slide is talking about, and this is a little bit new to me, but I wanted to pose the question, engaging third parties in the onboarding and hiring practices. So I've seen it in my experience while employees are already part of the organization, sometimes HR and leaders will engage different kind of metrics and AI tools to gauge where those managers and employees are at and how to help them to move further. So when I was working for one of the companies, I was given the Simmons survey that I listed on here as a tool. And I thought it was very interesting. It was like 75 questions that were really quick. And based on that, it gave me a breakdown of what kind of a person or a leader I am. And I thought it was nice. And then the company would take it and then try to build on that and create leadership tools for me to be able to engage. So Sevi has an example of how they're doing it in her company and her country as a part of the hiring process. So I thought that that was very interesting, how employees or employers are looking at employees and maybe including some kind of third-party assessments to make sure that the people who are coming into our organization are people who will stand up for our values once we showcase them the way we just discussed. So I wanted to let Sevi to kind of talk about her process.
Yeah, really, when we tackle like engagement third-party program from an E&C perspective, the partners is really crucial for us and as a recruitment agencies. But the main thing here is that they should align with our company's values and a culture. There are a couple of key questions which should be like addressed. Usually in our company's practice, do really companies need to engage these third parties for all job openings? Do they need to adopt a merit-based approach? Do they need to do some kind of test in order to understand what's the behavioral score of that like candidate? And so additionally, like, is there a need to have a formal such kind of policies, engages third parties and making some kind of due diligence checks? This is really important. But when we see the industry-specific platforms, what we are doing now, we are trying to engage in, depending on the position, some kind of recruitment agencies, but provide, conduct the proper due diligence in order to make sure that this company is aligned with our values. But in other hand, in a relation to new joiners, the candidate, we wanted to make sure that from a behavioral standards, this person is also aligned. Be honest, the software platforms usually give you some meta as per your requirements, as per your best practices, but it's not the last final stage. You have to do some your human oversight and a verification and to make decision. Usually the HR partners taking this data as a metrics, they usually put on it their thoughts, their observation during the interviews, and just try to get the final remarks about the behavioral side of that person. Yeah.
So Nick, I'll ask a question of you. Have you seen that, or in the conversations that you have with the many compliance people, do you see that here in the United States that companies are using some kind of a behavioral metric for the onboarding process specifically?
So I think it's kind of across the board. I think it's very common now to mix sort of the subjective with the objective. Subjective obviously being a conversation in terms of like interviewing somebody, and then the objective being some kind of an assessment. We use them within our organization as well. They typically are focused in my experience on like personality assessment, kind of trying to better understand how an individual might be wired, what strengths they might have, like sort of naturally, and the extent to which those overlap with the job. Perhaps like a cognitive piece as well. So I think those are being used more and more. I have found in my own experience, it's a little difficult to really kind of uncover the ethical posture of an individual during that process. It's just hard to dig out. I mean, everybody has their kind of facade on, that like in that interview face. Some people have ChatGPT up answering the questions for them. So sometimes you don't really get to tell during that interview, everything about the person. But what I would say is that like within that first 90 days, you can get kind of an 80% accurate, maybe more, picture of that person, and whether they actually resonate with your values, or if they just kind of pay lip service to them, for example, or if they just kind of told a great story during their interview, but they're kind of an empty suit. I think it's an ongoing process. I think we run the risk of taking a snapshot of somebody, a two-dimensional picture of them, in an interview or with an assessment, and letting that sort of dictate who they are, because we all have dimensionality. We all kind of show up different. We all have a history and childhood and all these different things that sort of form together and amalgamate into how we show up all the time. But I think over a reasonable period of time of two to 3 months, you can get a pretty good picture that can maybe give you some clues as to how accurate those assessments and that onboarding or that hiring process might be.
Yeah,
I totally agree.
I'm always very interested how the companies make that decision. And like, I am a terrible test taker. Actually, the fact that I passed the CCP, it's amazing and brilliant in my own way, because I feel like I am a horrible test taker. I do well with written questions, and I can talk about many things. As you can tell, I can't stop talking. But test, ABCs, it's a little hard. So for me, it's like, although I find value, I really would have to understand how, and try it probably on myself, whatever the testing is, say, like what kind of a person, or what do I look like when I am given this test? What kind of a score would I have before I give it to anybody else? And I wonder if the companies do that. Like, how does that align, the third party align with the company values to make sure you're targeting, or at least I'm sure it's not just a specific score, but maybe a range of scores. And then my question is, what takes precedence? Does the score takes precedence? Is that in person? What if you loved someone in person and they tested poorly? Like, what happens, right? And I mean, those are questions. And I mean, who makes those decisions? So I think there's just so much more to it to be comfortable with that process. I definitely think you can find, hopefully, when you meet people, if they're authentic, they may be nervous, but sometimes you can see through that. So hopefully that can lead to great hires and setting the right tone. Here we just put up a quick slide, and I know we have to move along with the time, and we may run over a little bit. There is a whole lot of employees that we can inspire to be better with the tone we set at the beginning of the employment. But sometimes, and I know I have some dear friends who are on and who are HR people, but sometimes I call this the Viva la Resistance from HR kind of a slide. There is some kind of a pushback and resistance when it comes to HR and the roles they play in the hiring process, and the role that compliance wants to or would like to play and share in the hiring process. So we wanted to talk a little bit about that, because Sevi had some good comments about the slide on what she has come across was the resistance when, as a compliance person, tried to help improving process, whether it was onboarding or whatever else process. So Sevi?
Yeah, actually, I have some kind of live experience from my previous practice. Like sometimes I had like HR approach that, it's really due to volume of the information, just starting flow, flow from start to finish. It's really hard to manage. So it would be really good to have beforehand as the minimums of the compliance requirements, and just to ask and to do the tick box instead of just involving the compliance officer. So it's really, I don't think that it's the right approach. And I'm not like supportive just to join and to involved in each interview process, recruitment process, compliance, but there should be some kind of like a mutual dialogue between the compliance and the HR, and there should be like approach which helps avoid any kind of misunderstandings that HR, it's okay, we don't need any compliance. If we have the minimums of the recruiting part, it will be okay. Finally, there is a chance to make the due diligence or security check of that person from the compliance perspective. Just don't be just rush and involved in compliance. But however, there is always room just to do a second level compliance check in order to understand. But it will be really good to have life in a live regime and to understand if really HR business partner, like hiring the right person. Because after shortlisted, they just provide, for example, in a sampling, I see they provide the final winner, the final candidate. And sometimes it's really hard to manage when this person failed to go through to pass a security check and the due diligence. It will be really good to have maybe the minimums from the beginning, not to have the fail at the end. Yeah.
Yeah, I will go to say this. You know, my old boss used to say, and I love saying this, he was a great boss. People, you know, you don't know what you don't know. So compliant HR people, recruit, they're really good at their job of recruiting, but they're so focused on the recruiting that they don't think about the things that we know and that are dear and near to our hearts. So we have to work on connecting and educating ourselves, asking questions about what does the process look like, where can we add value, how can we help you. I think those things are very important to just extend the olive branch and go beyond the resistance and understanding the challenges that they may be facing, whether it's fear of change, whether there's resource or issues, lack of buy-in. Work on that. Really build your relationships and just try to work on creating the process. Although I do have to say, from my personal experience, I extended a branch. Once I realized what the onboarding looked like at that company, I reached out to the person who I thought was in charge of the onboarding training process. I created a deck of slides. I forwarded on to them, and I expressed that I would love for these slides to be included. If they wanted my help, I would be happy to join and do whatever I had to do. And they said, yes, okay. But then I had no control over what the process was, except that I provided the information. So sometime later, I checked back in and I said, oh, how is it going? Are you having the slides? I would like to update them. Things changed. People changed. And they're like, oh, that person left, so it's somebody else. So you had to restart the process. So just to say, just because you did it once, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't check in and do it again. So I think it's continuous improvement and continuous process, and just kind of put it on your compliance calendar of activities that you want to do to make sure that, the company is where you want it to see it when it comes to setting the right tone for the organization.
Walking through the forest one time does not create a path through the forest. You got to walk that path a bunch of times if that path is going to be real and exist. And this is never a one and done thing. This is not like we're flipping a light switch and said, okay, we're good to go. A culture is it's a reaction. It's a living thing. It's like your culture is never set. These processes are never set. Like you said, people are changing all the time. Processes are changing all the time. And that reaction is like a bonfire. And if you've ever built a bonfire, I've never built one, of course. I get those little, blocks that you just light. But if you ever built a bonfire, you have to keep feeding that thing or it's going to die out. And so I think that that underscores a really important point that Kathy kind of echoes here. And I think this comment, thanks for this comment, Kathy. She said, I think it comes down to trust and actions on both sides. Are both sides being real? And over time, it all comes to light. Who is really sincere? Actions always speak louder than words at the end. And it's so much. And, one other, I think, important takeaway from Evie's story about, extending that olive branch. She didn't sit back like a critic and say, that onboarding stinks. No, she brought a solution and said, hey, here, I think we can add this. And look, you can just integrate these. When we can be a servant to the people across the organization, we can start to engage in that natural reciprocity that we're all wired with. Look, I was on a webinar and someone said, you want to try to get your behavioral science expert into these conversations. And I'm thinking, like, that's us. That should be us. Like, it's on us. If this is a game of if it's a game of influence, if compliance is just behavior, if our culture is just a sum total of all these behaviors and beliefs, it's on us to influence these human beings. We can't influence human beings as effectively or efficiently if we don't understand how those machines work, right? So those machines are humans, and we have to be these behavioral science experts. And so when we can take advantage of that little window to build that first impression, because the first impression is the last impression. Thanks for that. Someone saved me in the comments there. The first impression is the last impression. When we can engage in that reciprocity, we can really supercharge and like fast forward the creation of trust between these individuals or between these groups of people, and our impact can actually be felt.
Yeah, excellent. I mean, great, definitely great points, Nick. So I just want to kind of go over, really, for the people who are online, we have created this hiring practices checklist for you to kind of take a look at and start the conversations across your companies and, figure it out what the processes are, who makes the decisions, how can you help to improve. I think those are important. And then you will also see the slides. And I wanted to see what else do we have here, because we're almost on time. And just before we leave, unless Nick, you have something else to say, I did wanted to give myself another plug-in, if I can. On Amazon, you can find this book. It's called Let's Talk About Ethics. It's really not a book. It's a journal. And I put in pictures from my vacations because I feel like happy people are more inspired, and a quote that are by many great people, great thinkers that have to do with ethics, compliance, and integrity. And I want everyone to be inspired, and every day it's just something that I try to live by every day. And when I have a hard day, I take a look at the quote and try to do the right things always. But like we said before, talking about leaving place better, I hope that Sevi and I left your place better today to kind of go back and have your takeaway, having those conversations, looking at the checklist and looking at all the different opportunities that you could have to extend the olive branch and improve the processes. I think it's important. And if we can get this part going, then maybe we all together can collectively spread the message across to the colleges and to all the students who don't get ethics and compliance training, and then even be crazier and bring it further to the high schools, because that would be my dream, to let the kids know in the high schools who have the first jobs entering in, like your interns. Actually, that's a great question. If you have interns, summer interns, do you give them ethics training, or do they just come in and do the work? So anyway, food for thought. I am so happy to finally be able to be here. I'm super excited. Thank you, Nick, for everything, and definitely appreciate the opportunity.
So let's get one more emoji explosion. This is phenomenal. Almost 8,000 emojis. Phenomenal. Listen, don't get overwhelmed if you feel like, oh my gosh, it's so far. This journey is so far. The top of the mountain is so far. Little hint, you're never going to get to the top of the mountain. And if you do, guess what? It's all mountains behind you. So this is really about the journey. Take a little step forward. Look at one thing you can change today. It starts with our mindset. We're never going to be able to fulfill our purpose if our mindset is not right. As Lauren says, you can never outgrind a bad mindset. So we got to get our mindset right. Thank you all for coming. We're not going to have a session next Tuesday because they're going to be a live session at either Compliance Week or HCCA. So hope to see you there. But we also hope to see you next Thursday. We got a great session called Drop the Word, Not the Work. So hope to see you there. Free CEUs, free books. Love you all. See you next week.